we'll do a quick round of introductions first of all. Feel free to turn your camera on and say hello if you want, or if you don't want, that's okay. But it would be great if you could at least turn your microphone on and just give us a little introduction to who you are and what your experience is or interest with Kubescape. I will direct people down the list alphabetically, but as I'm the host, I get to be first. My name is Craig. I'm the VP of Open Source at Amo, who are the company that created and released Kubescape and submitted it to the CNCF. And I help out people like yourselves who come to meetings like this. We'll go down through the maintainers first. So let's have Alessio.
Hello. So yeah, my name is Alessio. I'm one of the maintainers of the Kubescape project, specifically the host scanner. So if you have any question regarding the host scanner, feel free to ask to me.
I have a question. Why do you hate the host scanner so much? I saw a pull request today to remove it from the CLI.
Yeah, I saw today.
We can talk. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, we should talk.
All right, Matthias.
Hello, folks. Yeah, my name is Matthias. I'm a Kubescape maintainer, mostly working on the in-cluster components. And on my free time, I'm a reviewer for the kubelet in the main Kubernetes project.
How is sidecar containers looking for 128?
We're still fighting for having the approve from Clayton, but it's looking good.
Good. All right, and Rina.
Hello, I'm Rina. I'm team leader at Armo. I am more at the backend components, but I still just take a look also at Kubescape. So nice to meet you all.
All right, so let's next up have our LFX mentorship students. So we'll start with Tejas.
So hello everyone, I am Tejas and I'm currently an undergraduate student in my senior year at IIT Jodhpur, and I'm working with Kubescape for this LFX term.
Great, glad to have you here. And Yash.
Hey everyone, I'm Yash. I'm a final year student at Delhi University, and I'm currently working on the Prometheus Exporter project for this term LFX project. And sorry, I can't open my camera for some reason.
That's no problem at all. All right, so there are a few members of the community here. Feel free, if you want to introduce yourself and just say what your interest is or anything in particular that you'd like from today's meeting, then feel free. But I won't call you out individually in case no one really wants to do that.
I can start.
This is Abnesh.
Yep, so Rakshit.
Okay. Yeah, so hey everyone, my name is Rakshit Gondwal. I'm an undergraduate student from India. I'm a Google Summer of Code mentee for CNCF organization working under the Captain project. I'm also a team member of VMadex community, and I love contributing to open source and communities. And yeah, I'm looking forward to contributing to Kubescape in the future. Thank you.
Fantastic, welcome, thank you. So Abhinash, Shreyas, Abhinash, you're up. See you. Not sure if you wanted to, but we can see you there.
I learned, I am just learning that gRPC model of Golang, and just started contributing to Kubescape, and I am just looking for the folder structure of the Kubescape. And also I'm a hackathon enthusiast and own many of them, and I'm just keenly interested in this project and trying to learn that. So
great, fantastic, welcome.
Thank you.
And then Shreyas, if you're interested, feel free to say hello. Otherwise, oh, there we go.
Hey folks, I'm a final year student, going to be a graduate soon, working at Aquinox, which has a project called CubeArmor, which is also a CNCF project, and hoping to contribute there.
Great. I'd like to hear more about CubeArmor and how you think the projects could relate to each other. So we can talk more about that later on as well. Okay, so like I said, there's no particular agenda for today. One thing that I thought might be interesting was that we had a pull request come through this morning for just some text changes. So I thought it might be interesting to have Matthias, I guess, as the reviewer of note here, to review that live and go through the process of what it looks like when someone contributes something to Kubescape and how that's reviewed and how it's merged and when it will come through. So if we can get him to share his screen as he's ready. If there are any other questions or anything else that people have throughout, feel free to put them either in the text chat or just welcome to speak up as we go.
Okay, should I try to share my screen?
Yes, please. Oshrat is a member of our team, and she lives in Tel Aviv in Israel, but did spend a bit of time in the US, I think. And she often acknowledges that people over there speak a language called Heblish, sort of a combination of the two things. But she noticed somewhere in the output of the Kubescape where it was, in her consideration, Heblish, and just wanted to tidy things up a bit. So if you just click through the files change, just have a look at what it is we're dealing with here.
Yes, sure. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
My audio was disabled. I don't know. It was sharing the audio for the tab.
Yes. It probably realized there's a child screaming in the background and turned itself off out of politeness.
Probably. All right. Yeah. So yeah, the fix is like quite easy because it's the same string in like different places of the code. So yeah, obviously in the Go template, and then in one of the example, and then in some of the mocks that we use in tests. So I mean, nothing particular. It's the same string everywhere. One thing that I wanted to mention is that we have some checks here in the process. And do we see the DCO? Yeah. So this one was failing because Oshrat, being not really tech savvy, she decided to create the pull request using the web UI of GitHub. And unfortunately, the commits do not include the line that is needed for DCO. So I will show an example here. Yeah, this is the line that needs to be added. And I don't know if there is a way of adding it manually, but automatically it's not added. So maybe you can tell more about why we need this, Craig?
Yeah. So the projects that are in the CNCF, basically there needs to be a audit trail of the code, and to basically say that a named person, it doesn't have to be a real name, it can be a pseudonym, but we need to know that the code was submitted by someone in the event that we need to go back and evaluate it. And so there's two different paths that projects use for this. One is a heavier weight thing, which is called a contributor license agreement, or a CLA. And they normally require you to sign something in advance, either as an individual or have your company sign it. And that's a legal contract, basically, that says I or my company will submit code, and we promise that it's not copied from anyone else and that it's not stealing and ChatGPT didn't write it and so on. I think that one isn't actually in the license, but it should be. And then the much lighter weight version is this thing called the DCO, which is the Developer Certificate of Origin. And that basically says for each change set, this is the person who signs off and says, hey, yes, this came from me. And they're basically asserting the same things. They're saying that this is the person who you can contact in the event of anything. And it's a requirement for CNCF projects that you use one of those things. We picked the DCO because it was lighter weight. And what that means practically is that every commit you make, the commit message has to have the string, and it has to be signed off by, and then a name and an email address. There is a convenience in Git, I think it's --S, which will sign off for you automatically. In the standard GitHub pull request interface, so if you do an edit on a file in GitHub, I think it has a drop down. I know that it didn't, and I think now it does, but because it looks like Oshrat was editing more than one file, she might have been using the editor thing, which looks a bit like Visual Studio Code and runs in the browser. And it's possible, yeah, that's not the one. Try contributing.md. I see what you're doing.
I don't see it. I don't.
Okay, we'll have a look. I know that it's possible.
Yeah. Let's have a look. Yeah.
In your own, maybe not in their repository, but it can be turned on. And sorry if that's a thing that we've forgotten. But yes, the general thing you need to do though, if you are submitting a thing, is we have a recommendation. I think if you look at the documentation for contributing, we have a recommendation for a snippet you can put in your Git configuration, which will always add the sign-off line for you. I think is at the bottom of this file. Here we go. And then if you have submitted a commit and it didn't work, then basically you just check the repository out, edit the config message, and force push it back again.
Yeah, so this is basically what I spent like 10 minutes with Oshrat to fix our commits this afternoon. And once this was done, yeah, I was able to validate, to approve the pull request. We're gonna merge it like maybe later. We tend to do batches of pull requests.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So we tend to try and release every 2 weeks. Do you want to just talk through the current branching process? So pull requests are made against the master branch at the present.
Yes, but this is only for us, right? I mean, normal contributors should like create their own forks and then submit a pull request from the fork. I don't know if we have examples here.
Oh, sorry, was Oshrat's one done from a branch in the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So the repository is set up so that people who are working on the project basically have access to it. But most people do not have that. And so generally what happens is when you go to edit it, it will say that the changes can't be made. And most people, community members who are submitting things, will have done a fork, as Matthias says, and then the patch will be sent back that way. And that might be the reason why the DCO thing didn't show up.
Yeah, maybe.
She's on the fork there. It says Oshrat n/Kubescape.
Yeah, she's on the fork. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay. Yeah, then, so the DCO is one check, but then we have some other checks, like make sure that with Git Guardian that we don't have any secret or anything that we don't want to disclose in the source code. And then like a very long process of generating like 1 hour. Yeah. I think for this queue, I have created some tasks to reduce that time.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I will work on it in August.
We are charged by the letter. Every letter she changed adds another minute to the.
Almost. Now the thing is, even if we just modify the text, we still need to generate like all the architectures, and then we run the system tests on all of them. So actually, this is just a build. It's when we do the release that we have the system tests. This one is skipped. So. Yeah, I will obviously have a look why it's so slow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just a spoiler for anyone who isn't aware, we are now doing builds for other architectures. So the GitHub build system is all done on cloud machines that are running Intel CPUs, and we're now building for ARM, and that I think takes quite a lot more time. So it's spinning up a pretend ARM machine inside a QEMU.
I think that's all I wanted to show.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions or anything we can help talk about the contribution process and testing and? Okay. All right, well, now we'll open up the floor. If anyone has anything they want to ask about the project, feel free. If not, what I might do is ask Tejas and Yash to talk a little bit about the onboarding they've done with the project and what they've found in the process of learning how to build and hack on Kubescape.
Okay, so after onboarding, like we are like the building of Kubescape and the in-cluster components was done. and we were trying to install and run Kubescape through like the Helm charts and stuff like that. But there was an issue which we were facing. I guess we discussed during that meeting as well. So yeah, as David mentioned that we can probably fix that issue. So I am working on it. If I can fix that, there is a small like a change in the path of Kube1 where it is fetching the cluster data.json file, and it is like somewhat. I have done it manually. I have created the file exactly at the location where it is expecting it. So I think this should be automated or something. I need to discuss it with David, I guess, or like if someone can clarify.
Yeah. So the again, for people who are newer to Kubescape, the part we were looking at before was the command line tool, which you download and run locally, and then it connects using the Kubernetes API to a running cluster or looks at local files or Git repository or so on. There is also a set of components that you can install in your cluster. They're installed with a Helm chart, and they can run continuous scans, which can have some data exposed through Prometheus, and we'll have a lot more exposed when Yash has finished his project. And then the scan data can also be sent off to third parties, including the Armo platform. And so the components that run in the cluster, there is an operator, there's the Kubescape running itself as a microservice, and there's kubevol, which is a vulnerability scanning engine, which looks at the running containers. And the configuration, because all these things are separate, of course, from separate microservices, they all have separate configuration that need to be updated. And it turns out that we put the guidance on how to build these things in only one of the README files rather than all of them. So David pointed out where it is that we needed to look. And what we're going to do as part of this is have the students basically update the guidance on each of the individual services and have a single place. Maybe it's the documentation or the GitHub wiki or something, where they can say, this is how you build and manage the microservices. Here's how you debug them, for example. Like if you are working on one of them, you don't want to install all of them locally. You just basically take the one that you're running, disable it inside the cluster, do a local build, and port forward something to it. So Matthias or Alessio, I don't know if you have sort of opinions on if that's the right way to develop or...
So I've had some success using telepresence to do all the port forwarding and the like run my local application inside the cluster when I was developing Kubevol. And yeah, otherwise when you run locally, you have to make sure that you have all the, I mean, without Docker, you need to make sure you have everything that is expected inside the container on your machine. Yeah, that's the issue that you face. Yeah. Yeah,
and that's a pretty consistent issue that anyone developing anything inside Kubernetes is going to come across. Yeah, so if there's anything still blocking you on that, then like I say, feel free to put it in the Kubernetes dev Slack. And we'll look forward to seeing some pull requests with updates to the documentation as we fix the issues and make more note on how to work on them in the future. Okay. Right, so like I say, we've got a couple of maintainers here. If there's any generic questions, anything people want, any pull requests that they'd like reviewed live, that's a thing we can do.
Actually, I had one question.
Please.
So I was having a look at the Kubescape operator, and I saw that there are currently none issues present on that repository. So I just wanted to ask that if there are any future features that we are planning to release or something that I can contribute to the operator, then I'd love to work on it.
Yeah, so my feeling here, like we haven't gone through a lot and left a lot of hints to people around the in-cluster components. Most of the things, the way people interact has been with the CLI. So there are cases where people have said, hey, I'd like this thing to be different or so on. My recommendation to people is install the thing, see it running, and then find something that's broken in it. There are sometimes a lot of issues that people rise, but I don't necessarily find fixing an issue that I see listed on the issue tracker, if I don't have that problem myself, as being particularly motivating. And if you do want to learn a code base, it's good to have those things. So we do want to go through and find some of those. And we are working on a project at the moment to make some changes to the way that the Kubescape in cluster components operate. And so we may end up raising a bunch of these issues, but I don't think we have anything specific right now that I'd say, hey, this is a really good way to get started. But I'll turn that over to Matthias and see if he's got anything.
Yeah, especially the operator. We have currently some talks about if the operator should be like a real Kubernetes operator built on the Kube. What's the name again?
Kube Builder.
Kube Builder.
Yeah, Kube Builder. Yeah. To create like a real operator that will like handle all the in-cluster components. It's not decided yet, but if something happens, it won't be until later this year or early next year.
Yeah. So if you have any questions for those kind of things, like I would say, feel free just to drop by Slack and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'd like to do. It's a lot easier to have a conversation with someone and say, hey, could you go find an area where I can start? Like, we don't have anything off the top of our head, but if now that we've had this conversation, if you drop by Slack, then I'm sure one of us can go through and say, hey, here's a thing I found in the code, or here's a place where the spelling of a word is wrong or something. We can get people started with very simple little things, which will help them step up to further.
Sure, I'll also try to install it locally and find any issues if I can. Thank you.
Yeah. And even just, let's say, the process of learning how to install it locally, that's a thing that contribution is welcome. And we do have some people working on that. So
thank you.
No problem.
Just a quick question, like we are probably planning to have a meet regarding our projects this week, right?
Yes, he says, knowing that he's going to take a big international flight at the end of the week and might not have time.
Okay.
Yeah, so for the mentorship program, we'll probably chat later this week if we can.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So as discussed in the onboarding meeting with Craig and David, we said that for the Prometheus exporter project, we will use dummy JSON data and try to scrape that to convert them to Prometheus metrics. I'm working on that as of now, but what I was thinking is that for Kubescape 3.0, the refactoring will take some time. So what we can try to achieve alongside of this JSON scraping thing is that we could somehow use Gripe. I've used it a lot since the past days, and the way it presents the vulnerability data, we can somehow try to scrape that and then convert them into Prometheus metrics. Going through the Gripe code base for some days, and just to tell me if this approach is good or not. I would love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, so broadly speaking, for everyone else, we're doing work now on a 3.0 project for Kubescape. And one of the things that we will do is have the scan data that's done inside the cluster available in Kubernetes objects and CRDs and so on. And we will be able to export that, expose that through Prometheus. But until that is done, there's a couple of different things we could do. We could just get the output that is generated by it today and dump it into a bunch of JSON files, or we could take the standard Gripe JSON output and use that as a source. Like the harder problem that I think we have to solve is figuring out in the scope of tags and Prometheus data points and so on, like what is the right way to present this information? And so it doesn't matter so much what the tool was that gave it to you, and it doesn't have to be up to date initially. It's figuring out for a container image, which has a version and tags and it has CVEs that were calculated at this point of time, and next week it might have more of them and the severities might go down and they might go up. Sorry, they don't normally go down, but the number of them goes up. What is the way of tagging those things so that they're useful and so they can be alerted on? And so the connectivity doesn't matter so much for now. I say we'll plug that bit in when it's there. It'll be useful to do what we can with kubevuln today, but just taking a container of your own, exporting data out of Gripe or something, and then figuring out what to do would be useful.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, Tejas, we'll have a chat later on this week if we can about where things go there. Okay. If no one else has anything in particular they'd like to discuss, then that was a good chat, and we'll have another one of them next month. All right. Thank you all. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
See you next time.